29th Annual Congress, Postgraduate Institute of Agriculture, University of Peradeniya. The organizing committee of the 29th Annual Congress is pleased to present the research highlights of the technical sessions consisting of 31 full papers and 13 short communications. Technical Session 1: Animal Science and Mariculture. Captive breeding of long-snout seahorse in Sri Lanka under artificial conditions. The results of the study revealed that the successful breeding of seahorse is possible under artificial conditions in Sri Lanka. Ensealing property of nutritional quality of palmyra leaves incorporated corn or sorghum silage. A laboratory experiment was designed to examine the effects of the inclusion of palmyra leaves to forage sorghum or corn on the ensealing and nutritional quality of silage. Productive and reproductive performance of crossbred dairy cows in tropical highlands in southwestern Ethiopia. The aim of the study was to assess the productive and reproductive performance of crossbred dairy cows in southwestern Ethiopia. The shortage of feed, land and water were found to be the reasons for poor productive and reproductive performances of crossbred cows. Serum metabolic profile based assessment of nutritional status of temperate crossbred stall-fed lactating dairy cows. A case study of a medium-scale mid-country cattle farm. According to the results of this study, it can be recommended that the adaptation of energy-protein balance feeding program is important to optimize the productivity while minimizing incidence of metabolic disorders in temperate crossbred dairy cows in mid-country. Phenotypic marker-based evaluation of resistance to Haemonchus contortus in Sri Lankan indigenous goats and their Jamnapari crossbreds. The study concluded that phenotypically Sri Lankan indigenous goats are more resistant to Haemonchus than Jamnapari crossbreds. However, there is a high within genotype variability for phenotypic parasitic resistance in both genotypes. Technical Session 2: Tissue culture and plant characterization. Development of an effective propagation protocol for Heen bovitia. The researchers were able to investigate an effective multiplication technique for mass propagation of Heen bovitia, an endemic species to Sri Lanka with potential values as an ornamental flowering plant. Protocols for in vitro direct plant regeneration from leaf tissue for micropropagation of sugarcane. The investigated in vitro protocol is suggested for rapid micropropagation of sugarcane, introducing genetically homogeneous and white leaf disease-free planting material in the establishment of sugarcane nurseries. Effect of the phenological growth stage on the establishment of in vitro cultures of bale. This study was undertaken to identify the correct phenological stage of bale trees to collect explants for the micropropagation. Reproductive phenology of tea cultivars in Sri Lanka. This study was conducted to assess the reproductive phenology of tea, to assess the reproductive phenology of 10 selected parental cultivars from a representative sample of 3 tea seed gardens in Sri Lanka. Morphological characterization of selected local and introduced finger millet germplasm in Sri Lanka. The results revealed that the Sri Lankan finger millet germplasm collection exhibited the similar variability with global finger millet germplasm collections. Hence, this variability can be used effectively for finger millet improvement in Sri Lanka. Technical Session 3: Agronomy, Food and Nutrition. Evaluation of the nutritional value of selected leafy vegetables grown in Sri Lanka. This study was attempted to assess the nutritional value of 10 leafy vegetables commonly grown in Sri Lanka. Among them, Thampala or Amaranthus viridis was found to be the richest source of essential mineral elements. Mineral composition and nutrient analysis of selected underutilized yams grown in Sri Lanka. This study was carried out to determine the moisture content, crude fat, crude protein, ash content, total carbohydrate content, and some minerals of Katuala, Rajala, Angiliala, and Kukulala grown in Sri Lanka. Potential of rhizobacterial Pseudomonas and Basilicus species to manage papaya ring spot virus disease of papaya. The aim of this study was to determine the potential of rhizobacterial species in managing papaya ring spot disease and their ability to promote plant growth and yield and induce host plant resistance through the activity of defense-related enzymes. Performance of anaerobic germination-tolerant rice varieties in direct seeding, effects on stand establishment, weed growth, and yield under different seeding rates. Objective of this study was to identify the effect of seeding rate and anaerobic germination tolerance varieties on stand establishment, weed growth, and yield of rice germinated under submerged condition. Potential of Epavala rock phosphate as a phosphorus fertilizer for rice cultivation in acid sulfate soils in Mathura district in Sri Lanka. This study was conducted to compare the effect of application of Epavala rock phosphate as a phosphorus source to the rice with triple superphosphate, which is recommended by the Department of Agriculture. Technical Session 4: Communication Technologies and Social Sciences. The use of free open source software technologies to enhance knowledge mobilization in smallholder agricultural communities in Sri Lanka. This study was carried out to explore the possibility of applying free open source software or FOSS technologies in the combination of mobile technologies to promote sustainable knowledge mobilization amongst the agricultural communities in Sri Lanka. Severity of climate-induced drought and its impact on migration. A study of Ramekap district, Nepal. Severity of drought leading to permanent and seasonal migration as a common livelihood strategy was studied in 2 municipality areas in Nepal. The impact of adversity quotient on stress levels of NGO sector middle-level managers. This study was aimed at investigating the relationship between levels of stress and adversity quotient of middle-level managers employed in the Sri Lankan non-governmental organizational sector. Resilience of farmers at water shortage situations in minor irrigation systems. A case study in the Kurunegala district, Sri Lanka. This study concluded that the capacity of the tank, accessibility of services, and the trust of farmers, both on farmer organizations and the agency officials, are some of the key factors which govern the resilience of farming in minor irrigation systems. Technical Session 5: Biotechnology. In silico promoter analysis reveals rice waxy gene promoter could be a Tata-less promoter with a putative pyrimidine-rich region. The results revealed that rice waxy promoter could be a Tata-less promoter with a putative pyrimidine patch and categorized under ATCG middle class of promoters. Preliminary investigations on the genetic relationships and origin of domestication of the tea plant using genotyping by sequencing. 114 wild land races and cultivated tea samples were collected across 14 countries in Asia and used for the genotyping by sequencing analysis to study the genetic relationships and origin of domestication of the tea plant in Asia. Mapping and validation of QTLs for root architectural traits in rice. Oryza sativa under non-stress and salinity stress conditions. This study was conducted aimed at identifying root quantitative trait loci in rice using recombinant inbred line population derived from AT354 and BG352. Phenotypic screening of rice varieties for tolerant to salt stress at seed germination, seedling, and maturity stages. Based on the phenotypic observations, Pukkali was identified as high salinity tolerant variety, whereas BG369, AT354 and AT402 were identified as salinity tolerant varieties among the selected rice varieties at maturity stage. Technical Session 6, Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering. Comparative assessment of newly designed burial type lowland power cultivator for weed control. The aim of this study was to appraise the newly designed burial type lowland power cultivator through a comparative performance assessment including cost economics. Design and development of heat pump based moisture control system for industrial drying of medicinal plants. A heat pump based dehumidifier was designed and fabricated for moisture control of agricultural produce. Scaling up of an upflow anaerobic sludge blanket incorporated with a biofilter liner system for treating kitchen wastes. A bottom biofilter liner incorporated to an upflow anaerobic sludge blanket reactor or UASBR was designed, developed and evaluated for food wastages for 47 days as a semi-batch setup with intermittent upflow circulation to simulate the startup. This study was conducted to scale up the developed UASBR. Development of auger conveyor type metering device for transplanting of vegetable seedlings raised in paper plots. An auger type metering mechanism was developed for metering of paper pot seedlings for transplanting. Technical Session 7, Spatial Analysis, Forecasting and Mapping. Classification of geographical origin of Sri Lankan black tea using discriminant function analysis. This study gives an insight on the potential to classify Sri Lankan black tea using the profile of chemical constituents and to ensure the authenticity of the Ceylon specialty tea in order to upkeep the market share. Forecasting annual tea production in Sri Lanka. This study focused on modeling and forecasting the total annual tea production in Sri Lanka and also the annual tea productions in the Sri Lankan major tea growing areas, low-grown, mid-grown and high-grown. Detailed mapping of a soil texture of a paddy growing soil using multivariate geostatistical approaches. This study was conducted to explore performances of multivariate geostatistical techniques, co-kriging and regression kriging in contrast to univariate ordinary kriging to generate detailed maps of soil texture using proximally sensed apparent electricity conductivity as secondary information. Mapping of soil erosion hazard zones of Sri Lanka. This study focused on mapping of erosion hazard zones by combining Geographic Information Systems GIS data along with InVest model. Poster presentations. Development of a protocol for in vitro establishment of Grynops valla. Development of an artificial breeding and hatchery technique for exotic ornamental fish. Length-weight relationship of 4 different sea cucumber species in northeast coastal region of Sri Lanka. Cost-benefit analysis on the introduction of Macrobrachium rosenbergii in Putumuruppu medium perennial reservoir, Sri Lanka. Socio-economic status of crab fishers in marketers in Navanture fishing village, Jaffna estuary, Sri Lanka. Identification of cyanobacteria inhabiting paddy fields in the intermediate zone and dry zone of Sri Lanka. A gendered analysis on adaptation to resettlement stress. Case studies from Daduroe Reservoir project in Sri Lanka. Evaluation of the morphological characteristics and traits of agronomic interest of wild relatives and cultivated eggplant. Guide for potential utilization in eggplant breeding. Modeling and forecasting rainfall of the Kothmale Reservoir in Sri Lanka. determination of bound and total phenolic content and evaluation of antioxidant potential of selected Sri Lankan millet varieties. A binary logit estimation of factors influencing awareness of grass cutter farming among farming households in Kwara State, Nigeria. Molecular diversity analysis of conserved Capsicum chinense germplasm in Sri Lanka. Prevalence of mistletoes in fruit and timber trees in the wet and intermediate zone of Sri Lanka. These research papers will be published in the Journal of Tropical Agriculture Research, which is highly recognized by the world scientific community. You are very warmly welcome to the technical sessions to be challenged, excited, and inspired. Thank you.